Let's talk about anime. Anime is something I have a very strange relationship with. I like it, but I can't really call myself an anime expert or anything like that. Growing up, I never really watched any of it at all, unless you want to really stretch and count Avatar and that one scene from Horton Hears a Who. When I came to the internet, I got introduced to the plethora of memes and jokes about anime, and yeah, to this day those jokes are still pretty funny. But my views completely changed in 2021. That was the year I watched Spirited Away for the first time, and was blown away by how truly amazing it was. That eventually led to me watching the rest of the Studio Ghibli catalog, and I quickly became very passionate about this studio's craft. Given how I had just found a batch of excellent movies, most of which I hadn't even heard of previously, it started to make me curious. If these Ghibli films are so great, what does the rest of Japanese animation have to offer? And that was the point when I dove into the mountain of anime movies, and I gotta say, wow. There is so much more to anime than the internet makes you think. I love those memes, but after watching these movies, I'm starting to really respect it. It's incredible how many amazing films there are out there that I never even knew existed during my childhood. Movies like Ride Your Wave or Makuya or Violet Evergarden have really opened my eyes, and I now see just how much anime is capable of. But if there's one anime director I've been interested in for quite a while now, it's Mamoru Hosoda. I was aware of this guy's films thanks to CellSpecs' ranking videos, but I never took the time to see any of them prior to 2022. But now that anime movies are something that genuinely interest me, I finally sat down to watch all of his films, and he's definitely a really good director. Throughout the past 15 years, he's been slowly but surely rising in popularity, and he's become a respected name in not just the anime industry, but the entire animation industry as well. It's always great to see talented directors become more widely known, and since Soda's films were a factor of what got me into anime, I figured it's time we talk about them. But we're not going to be talking about all of them. I'm perfectly aware that Mamoru directed a One Piece movie back in 2005, but One Piece was already a popular property. For this video, I really just want to focus on his 6 original movies, since those are what he's most known for and where he's able to show his creativity the most. Sorry, One Piece fans. But anyway, I think that's enough stalling. It's about time we look through a filmography filled with leaping girls, internet wars, werewolf children, little boys and their beastly fathers, jealous toddlers, and world of you sensations. Here goes nothing.
I see this as an absolute win.
As previously mentioned, Mamoru Hosoda directed a One Piece movie in the early 2000s, but that isn't actually what started his directing career. Instead, what really got him off the ground was when he directed an episode of Magical Do-Re-Mi, or as it's originally titled, Ojamuro Do-Re-Mi. This episode really impressed people, and got Hosoda a position at Japanese animation studio Madhouse Inc.
Welcome to the mouse. Oh, it's pretty hot.
This is where he got greenlit to direct his first original feature film, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. This movie stars Makoto, a teenage girl who discovers she has the ability to go back in time by jumping and hitting her head. She uses this power to try and improve her life, but it eventually results in drama between her and her 2 close friends, Chiaki and Kosuke. I must say, this is a pretty interesting concept for Hosoda to dive into so early on in his career. I've always been fascinated with time loop and time travel stories, since there's always so many different directions you can take them in. And with this one, Hosoda combined time travel with your typical high school drama movie, and for the most part, it works out well. My favorite aspect of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time would have to be how creative it is, and the ways it makes use of the time travel. We've had plenty of high school films and time travel films before, and we've even had some high school time travel films before. But The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is a bit different, as it's more of a character-driven film rather than one that's focused on the breakage of the space-time continuum or something like that. For the most part. Since Makoto has control over her time-leaping powers, she uses them to fix specific issues that tie into her character, which I found quite clever. At first, it starts off simple, with Makoto using it to do things like getting more time in a karaoke booth, doing better in school, and stopping herself from being hit by a giant flying man. You know, normal stuff. This portion of the film is pretty entertaining to watch, as Makoto is still trying to learn to use her powers, leading to a lot of great jokes. And like I said, time loop stories have always intrigued me, and it's really cool to see Makoto relive previous events. It's clear the writers took some inspiration from classic time loop films like Groundhog Day, as they definitely nailed the spirit of those very well. But at the same time, this movie still manages to stay original and fresh, mainly because Makoto can actually control her abilities, as opposed to being forever stuck in the same loop. And when you add in the high school aspect, you get some legitimately compelling drama between Makoto and her friends. Although, I can't really say I cared too much about any of the high school stuff that didn't involve the relationships between the three main characters. The movie falls into the trap of adding stuff it could have functioned without a few times, or at least dedicating too much time to it. Like this side character who has a crush on Kosuke, or this guy who goes crazy and throws a fire extinguisher for some reason. But other than that, the movie does a good job of staying focused on Makoto, and the relationship she has with her friends is really genuine and charming, which makes it a lot more interesting when the ways Makoto uses time travel start to affect her friends. My favorite example of this is when she keeps leaping back to avoid her friend confessing that he has a crush on her. You see, it's reasons like this why I called the movie clever, because it manages to use its far-out concept in a way that feels down-to-earth and relatable. I can definitely see a girl Makoto's age having similar conflicts, and using time leaping in similar ways if they had the ability to. But even if the writing does make her feel relatable, I can't really say I loved Makoto's character. I can't really tell if it was the intention of the writing to make her come off as unlikable in the beginning, but if it was, they definitely succeeded with flying colors. I really couldn't stand her at first. In the opening scene of this movie, all she does is say how great she is, and complains about how her sister stole her pudding, so yeah, the movie didn't start off on the right foot. Thankfully, the movie was aware of how unlikable she was, and has various scenes of her slamming into objects. But on the brighter side of things, I did warm up to her a little by the end of the film. There are definitely some bits where she got on my nerves throughout the entire runtime, but all in all, she has a satisfying character arc. Like I said, she does feel like an actual teenage girl, and seeing the way she tried to deal with the drama with her friends helped me sympathize with her. I like how she starts out by using the time leaps to solely benefit herself, thinking it's the greatest power ever, but eventually starts seeing that her actions have effects on other people. It's legitimately sad to see a rift start forming between the friend group, because Makoto knows she has nobody to blame but herself and her time-leaping shenanigans. Then when she starts using time-leaping to help her friends instead of just herself, it feels like she's grown as a character, and I liked seeing that. But even if the writing and characters are mostly solid, there's still two big problems that kinda drag this movie down for me. The first would be the animation, and how not great it is. I couldn't find an official budget for this film, but I have to assume it was low because this is not the most appealing film out there. It honestly reminds me of Ocean Waves with how it looks, and that's not necessarily a compliment. The character designs and backgrounds are all fine, but the movements of the characters just don't feel right, and the overall art style is way too pencil-y? Is that a word? Either way, it doesn't feel all that natural or smooth. Like it's missing the finishing polish that most other anime films have. There are also some scenes where it's clear they lacked budget, like how the characters don't have faces when they're standing far away.
Don't come crying to me when you change your mind too late about dating that girl.
Can we please just drop it now?
Don't come crying to me when you change your mind too late about dating that girl.
Can we please just drop it now?
I hate to talk positively about this film, but Tales from Mercy came out the same year and it looks gorgeous. But I guess I'll let the visuals slide since they're not terrible or anything. But you know what I'm not gonna let slide? The ending. Yeah, this is where the film started to lose me and made what the film was trying to say a little confusing. At the last minute, Makoto's friend Chiaki, the redhead, shows up and reveals that he's from the future, and he was sent back to the past for some reason that I don't remember, yet he decided to stay in the past because he fell in love with Makoto. Okay, I don't know, this twist wasn't built up to that well, and felt very, very weird. I think Hosoda did a good job jumping into the realm of time travel stories, especially since this was his first try, but here it feels like he tried to bite off a bit more than he can chew. Although I will give it this, it does lead to a satisfying conclusion of Chiaki going back to the future and leaving Makoto behind. Ending the movie off with Makoto having learned that time waits for no one, and it's important for her to look to the future while also taking responsibility for her past mistakes. Deep stuff. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is a pretty good movie, even if it does fall flat on its face a few times. It can be quite messy, and I definitely enjoyed some parts more than others, but overall it had some pretty solid writing with a subtle moral to it. Wouldn't say it's the best film, but it's got its fair share of pros, so I definitely call it a nice starting point for Hosoda's filmography. Only time will tell where the quality of his films go from here.
Verb, I know we're gonna do today.
I was honestly worried that I wasn't going to like Summer Wars that much. I had tried to watch this film once or twice before, but it didn't really grab me and I found myself turning it off 5 minutes in. But now that I've sat down to watch the whole thing for this video, I can definitely say it took me by surprise. Summer Wars stars Kenji, a high school mathematical expert who works for the internet virtual reality world called Oz. That is until he has to go to one of his classmates' family reunion and pretend to be her boyfriend to please her family. Things get really complicated, however, when a virtual intelligence called Love Machine hacks into Kenji's Oz account and causes mayhem across the internet, so now it's up to the family to stop it. We're only 2 movies into his filmography, and I'm already starting to notice what Hosoda likes to do with his films. He starts the movies off in very laid-back manners, but then he introduces an outer-worldly concept, merging it with a slice-of-life angle. The merging worked a lot better for me in this one than it did with Girl Who Leapt Her Time, as I found both sides of the story interesting, and the movie knows when to focus on each one. Starting off with the internet apocalypse story, can I just say how refreshing it is to see a film that uses the internet setting to its storytelling advantage? We're all aware of movies like Ralph Breaks the Internet and the movie I'm named after, where the writers use the internet as an excuse to make references and pander to the audience. But with Summer Wars and a certain other movie coming up later in this video, they actually tied the story into the internet setting and used it to its full potential, and not in a stupid way either.
Please tell me you didn't break the internet. Of course not. Didn't think so. It's way too gutsy to be you.
Whatever, if you know it wasn't me, then help me out.
There's no annoying product placement or references either, although that's probably because this movie wasn't made in America.
This movie was definitely not made in America.
On top of that, the setting allows for some truly fantastic visuals. The animation on the real-world humans is more or less the same as it was in The Girl Who Leapt Her Time, but what truly sticks out here are the scenes in the internet, which they use computer animation for. We get so many fantastic and fluid action scenes between the different avatars, which are just gorgeous. The avatars themselves present a ton of creative designs, and I especially love the look of Love Machine in monster form, and King Cosma. Although this movie was distributed by Warner Brothers, so why isn't this guy in Space Jam 2, huh? Come on, I need answers. There's also such a giant scope to the virtual world, to the point where I almost wish we spent more time exploring it. The movie does such a great job of setting up how big and popular the the world of Oz is. Then when Love Machine starts messing with all the different accounts, the effects are definitely felt. It's really devastating and scary to see this one little virtual intelligence in the internet mess with so many people's lives in the real world. Love Machine is able to control things like traffic systems, fire alarms, and emergency health devices. One of the main characters in this film dies because Love Machine turns off their heart monitor. It's that bad. This gives the movie a real sense of tension and even horror to it, which is incredible given that the villain of this movie isn't even technically a real person. The level of threat that Love Machine poses to the entire world is able to be huge without feeling silly or stupid. And at the same time, the movie isn't trying to hammer in the message of technology bad or anything like that. It's just trying to inform the audience about some of the dangers of social networking and the importance of maintaining human relationships with those around you. Despite this movie being made over a decade ago, I'd say these themes are still relevant and powerful today. And what adds to this is how well the human side of the story works too. You can tell Hosoda was starting to learn about giving his characters human emotions, because here they feel way more down to earth and relatable than the ones in Girl Who Leapt Her Time, which already had a ton of believable characters in it. I'm assuming he must have come from a large family or have gone to a lot of family reunions growing up, because he captures the stressful yet exciting feel of those perfectly. Each member of this family has their own distinct personality to them, and the ways they play off each other make them feel like they're actually related. Just by watching them all interact, you can feel that familial vibe, and these interactions do a good job of establishing what a given character is like, who has what role in the family, and etc. This aspect really shines with characters like Wabisuke or the grandmother, who would probably be my favorite characters in the film. Wabisuke is that one family member that everyone is against, you know, like a Bruno type character. But throughout the film, you learn that he's not evil or anything, and there's a legitimately good side to him that cares about the rest of the family. Oh, and also, he's really funny. The grandmother is the oldest person in the family, and you can tell she's the one who's in charge around there and doesn't want to be messed with, yet she still cares deeply about her family members. I love how during the internet apocalypse, she calls up various family members using an old telephone and inspires them to pursue through the trouble being caused by Love Machine. Given what type of character she is, that's something I can see a person like her doing. The movie is full of little actions like that, which really make the characters feel like actual people. Like when some toddlers see a report about Kenji on TV, they just drag him around like they're pretending to arrest him. This just makes the characters feel really human, and that's essential because this movie is literally about humanity fighting against the internet. The movie already has its intense, life-threatening stakes, but this aspect gives it some nice personal stakes as well. Although, if I had to critique anything about the characters, it's that there are so many smaller ones the movie doesn't dedicate enough time to, only for them to have story relevance later on. Like, there's this kid who's a computer expert, and then when he fails to save Oz later in the movie, I just didn't feel as much as the film wanted me to. But I wouldn't say that's too big of a problem, because it eventually results in the entire family teaming up to help Natsuki take down Love Machine, which is nice to see. Although the climax itself would be a bit of a mixed bag for me. On one hand, it's satisfying to see these characters take down such a giant threat in such a simplistic way, like playing a card game of Koi Koi, which they have been casually playing in the background of this entire movie. I think that really drives home the theme of human connections the movie is trying to deliver. However, it does take a little while to get to that point, as the climax is, I kid you not, 45 minutes long, and sometimes it feels like it's just dragging the movie out for no reason. Like, it starts with Kenji and some of the others trying to defeat Love Machine using a supercomputer, surrounding it with ice so it doesn't overheat. Ice, baby. But then, just as they're about to win the battle, some moron takes the ice away and the computer overheats, causing Love Machine to get away. This plot point is so frustrating and the only point in the film where the characters don't feel realistic. Why would you take ice that's right next to a supercomputer? Did he not see the supercomputer somehow?
Alright, stop.
They also introduce a ticking time bomb element during the climax, where if the characters don't defeat Love Machine, he'll drop a satellite onto a nuclear power plant and cause an explosion or something like that. It was at this point in the movie where I went, oh no, did this just turn into Ice Age Collision Course? The threats Love Machine posed up to this point felt grounded and serious despite being really big, but this went a little off the rail for me. I mean, the last thing I wanted was another Your Name. Thankfully, it doesn't damage the movie too much though, as it does manage to add a ton of tension to the climax and make it really exciting. And my last little complaint is that even after the family defeats Love Machine, it still conveniently has control over the satellite and sends it to drop on the family's house. Then Kenji manages to stop Love Machine at the last second, and the satellite lands like 1 inch away from their house. This part just felt a little unnecessary. I don't think the movie needed another dose of tension, and I thought the Koi Koi game culminated things in a much better way. Also, it's not like they stopped the satellite from coming down. People still died, right?
Listen, we need to evacuate. Tell the neighbors to get as far away as they can.
Neighbors? Hope you said goodbye to them. So yeah, the film's structure gets a little messy towards the ending, but it's still really exciting and plenty of fun to watch, and Summer Wars is still a great film. It's funny, charming, smart, engaging, and a blast to watch all throughout thanks to its great characters and interesting use of the internet setting. This was a big step up in quality, and I'd say Hosoda looks to be heading in the right direction. Yeah, I don't know where to begin. Wolf Children is phenomenal. I had already heard this film was amazing, but I didn't expect to love it this much. Out of all the movies in Hosoda's filmography, this was the one I knew the most about prior to 2022. Like I said in the intro, I've watched Cellspex's channel for years now, and if you know her, she adores this movie. Watching the clips she showed and her explanations of its brilliance definitely made me interested, so I'm surprised it took me until this video to watch it. But now that I finally have seen it, I can confirm that she's been right all along. This film is amazing. Wolf Children stars Hana, a young adult woman who falls in love with a werewolf, so I guess she's a furry? She then gives birth to 2 children who have the ability to transform into wolves, and the movie follows her journey through raising the children after her husband dies. Like the other 2 films, Wolf Children continues the tradition of taking what is mostly a slice of life story, but then adding a twist to it. Although in this one, it doesn't even feel like he's trying to blend 2 different sides of the story because they just merge together seamlessly. Most of the movie feels like a down-to-earth and realistic slice of life film, despite the fact that the characters are werewolves. And since it all feels so natural, I find the thing this movie is best at doing is making the viewer feel a wide range of emotions. And I mean a wide one, because nothing would prepare me for the emotional journey this movie would take me on. It's one of those films that is best described as human. Much like Miyazaki's catalog, Wolf Children is a movie that is able to suck you in through not just how layered, but real the characters feel. Hosoda has been consistently getting better at making his characters feel believable and realistic throughout the previous two movies, and third time must be the charm because this was a point when he was able to do it perfectly. The movie doesn't really have much of a plot or goal in it, it's just watching the lives of Hana and her wolf children as they grow up, so it's especially important for Hosoda to get the characters right in this one, which he did. Like I said, the characters being written as real is what's able to make you feel so much in the span of just 2 hours. I remember seeing CellSpecs talk about this film in her 2013 ranking, and back then I thought, "Aw, this looks so cute!" But trust me, this movie is more than just cute. The first 20 minutes or so was already a giant red flag, which told me the movie would be a tearjerker. The relationship between Hana and... Wait, what's his name? The Wolfman? Okay. The relationship between Hana and the Wolfman develops so naturally and makes you feel for both of them through their chemistry with each other. The movie even has a montage akin to Up where we see the two of them live their lives with each other, facing various ups and downs, and eventually having kids. And then when the Wolfman is killed, in the saddest way possible I might add, you truly feel Hana's struggle to raise her 2 kids. I'm not a single mother, and I most certainly don't look after kids with werewolf powers, but Hana's struggles of being a parent still nearly brought me to tears just with how many conflicts and moments of sorrow that keep piling on. Raising wolves as a human obviously doesn't sound like an easy task, but the movie really captures just how hard it is for Hana. She quits her job, she barely sleeps, she does whatever she can to ensure the kids and their wolf identities are safe. They move homes after the first act of the movie, and then Hana has to raise her children on top of adjusting to a more rural lifestyle. But even through all this, the film still manages to be lighthearted and not completely engulf its audience in tears of sorrow. Not only are the titular wolf children just adorable, but the dynamic Hana shares with her kids shows how much she cares about them. This movie is able to be simultaneously depressing and unbelievably wholesome. That's the magic of human emotions, and with this work of art, Hosoda was able to capture that magic and make his audience laugh, cry, feel anxious, feel happy, and despite what I said earlier, it's still unfathomably cute. But you don't feel for just Hana either. The film focuses on not 1, not 2, but 3 very deep characters with their own conflicts. I feel that films about family work best when an equal amount of focus and development is given to both the kid and adult characters, which is what a certain other film in Hosoda's catalog was kinda missing in my opinion. But with Wolf Children, not only do we see the complex and interesting struggles of Hana's journey through parenthood, but we also get to see the kids develop along with her and becoming their own people along the way. Makuya and the Promised Flower Blooms is another movie which functions in a similar manner, but I don't think the struggles of the kids or the parent and wolf children are as interesting or expertly connected as they were in that movie. Yeah, that is kind of a problem I have with Wolf Children. While focusing on 3 different characters, it does have a hard time balancing them out. The first half of the movie seems to be entirely focused on Hana raising her kids, but then afterwards her kids get a lot more screen time and the movie centers around them. While none of it was boring or bad, it did feel kind of weird for Hana to be focused on so much in the beginning, only for her to then fall by the wayside for a little while. And even beyond that, sometimes the pacing does feel a little inconsistent. The chunk of Hana adapting to the rural lifestyle does take up a bit more time than I would have wanted it to. However, it's still admirable how Hosoda and the writers were able to make 3 different characters, all with loads of development and human layers to them. And what I find really interesting is how they were able to assert the wolf terminology and whatnot into the emotional core of the film during the second half. As time passes, Hana's daughter Yuki starts going to school and acting like a little girl, straying away from the part of her that's a wolf. While this is happening, Hana's son Ame starts going out into nature with all the different animals, learning that he's happier being a wolf rather than a human. And then Hana is just stuck in the middle of all this, wanting to please both her children but failing to relate to them, seeing as she's 100% human. This is a really clever group of conflicts for a movie like this to have, as it ties into the movie's premise, on top of all 3 characters just being really compelling in different ways. I love watching Yuki be an easily excitable toddler who wants to go out into the human world, only to grow to realize that she feels like she belongs in that world. I love watching Ame go from scared and cautious as a kid, and then getting older, only to become stronger and more confident throughout the time he spends with nature. It's all just beautiful, engaging, and as I said, real. And speaking of beautiful, the animation in this one is top tier. After Summer Wars finished up, Hosoda left Madhouse and went with Yurichiro Saito to found Studio Chizu. I assume now that Hosoda had his own studio, he was given a wider range of budget for the animation, and that definitely shows with Wolf Children. The character animation is much smoother, the scenery is gorgeous, the color scheme of the film is amazing and perfectly fits the tone of each and every scene. It's all just a visual treat for the eyes, and a humongous step up from the previous two films. Damn, this movie is simply incredible. I'm pretty much out of things to say at this point, so I'll pass the mic over to someone else who thinks quite highly of this film.
Thank you, emoji. To me, Wolf Children is Mamoru Hosoda's best work. I'll even go a step further and say that it is one of the best movies I have ever seen. On the surface, its plot is rather simple. A widowed woman moves to the countryside to raise her two half-human, half-wolf children. In a nutshell, that's basically it, but it's the events that go on within the film that make it such an engaging watch. The main character, Hana, is put into a very precarious situation. After having her second child, her human-slash-wolf lover dies in an accident, leaving her all alone to raise two children who can change their species at will. Despite all the pressure she faces from her kids and the sus look she gets from everyone else, she doesn't give up. Her parenting and eventually farming skills get off to a rocky start despite all the reading she does. Yet with proper experience, she raises and provides for Yuki and Ame with lots of love and care. She, a city girl, moves to the countryside to let Yuki and Ame be free and to hide from the city folk that they're part wolf. Even in the countryside, she tries to hide her children from the neighbors to cover the truth, only to realize that she needs their help for them to grow up happy and healthy. That's not to say Yuki and Ame are just tokens for their mother's development. Far from it. They're still very strong characters on their own merits. Even in their early years, the two siblings are quite different. Yuki is far more outgoing and wild, embracing her wolf form and transforming whenever she feels like it. Ame, on the other hand, is frail and shy, and he's scared of the fact that he's part wolf. As they grow older, their paths take dramatic shifts. As Yuki heads off to school, she struggles to fit in with her classmates due to her different way of life, so she tries her hardest to conform with everyone else. Ame drops out of school to learn more about the natural world at his mother's new job. This inspires him to take off into the wild and become the guardian of the mountain. Hana struggles with her son's motives, fearing for his safety, until he proves to her that he's strong enough to live on his own. And that's a major part of this movie's emotional core. Parents should always support their children and be there for them, but at the end of the day, it's the children who determine their own paths. There will come a time when parents have to let go of their children, but even then, their time spent together will never be forgotten. Not to mention, the voice acting is top-notch, both in Japanese and English. Entire scenes are carried solely by the beautiful animation and score, and it's just a really nice movie to vibe to on top of being a thematically profound work of art. I seriously can't fit everything I want to say about this masterpiece into this one sub-segment, so there may come a time on my channel where I analyze this movie in detail. I've never been that good at ending essays, so I guess I'll just pass the mic back to Emoji.
Wolf Children is a near flawless and absolutely gorgeous film. This is a movie I would recommend to everyone. No matter how old or young you are going to adore this movie. It's definitely in the category of movies that are impossible to hate. But even with all that said, I don't think this is Hosoda's best film. Insane, right? Like, you have to be a really good director if Wolf Children isn't your best film, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Just go watch Wolf Children. It truly is beautiful.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own?
By this point in his career, Mamoru Hosoda was beginning to make a name for himself and become a notable player in the anime industry. He had 3 movies under his belt, all of which got great reviews from critics, and on top of that, he was gaining popularity quickly, which is probably the reason why he left Madhouse in the first place. Summer Wars was a huge commercial success, and when Wolf Children came along, it made 3 times the amount. However, even with all the traction he was gaining, Hosoda's next movie sorta flew under the radar. The film still made loads of money, but it isn't really talked about much nowadays, that film being The Boy and the Beast. This movie is about Ren, a little boy who's trying to grapple with the loss of his mother. He ends up running away from home and getting stuck in the land of the furries, which is called Jutengai. Here he meets Kumatetsu, a strong but extremely lazy and selfish beast, who's in line to become the next lord of Jutengai if he can win a fight. So Kumatetsu hires Ren as his apprentice to help him get prepared. Right off the bat, what really carries Boy and the Beast are the 2 main characters, who are, well, a boy and a beast. Seriously, everything here is working in favor of these 2, and given how they're the focus of the story, they make it super entertaining to watch. Based on the plot description I gave, you can probably already guess the dynamic between these 2. An old, cranky mentor tries to teach an unskilled kid. We've seen this story plenty of times before, and it is true that it makes the film a little bit predictable. But I don't mind a generic story as long as the style, pacing, and characters are able to elevate it, and since Hosoda's at the helm, he made sure that they do. Ren and Kumatetsu are both highly enjoyable and captivating characters, which is strange because on paper it doesn't seem like they would be. As I said, this isn't the most original story out there, but even besides that, the two spend a lot of time screaming and arguing with each other. It takes a while before they get to the point where they've gained even a little respect for each other, and before that, they don't get along in the slightest. You'd think watching endless arguments between the two central characters would make this film unpleasant to sit through, but no, I still enjoy both characters and root for them throughout the film. Part of that is because of the fantastic voice acting, which adds so much life to both of them.
Where'd he go?
I hate you and your stupid eggs!
But I think what also helps is the way the characters are written individually, making them each more sympathetic. While they aren't quite as down to earth as the ones from Wolf Children, Hosoda still managed to write these two in a way that makes them feel believable. Ren is a really compelling protagonist. He starts the film off just roaming the streets, hating the people around him, and not wanting to be with anybody. Given his young age, how he had just lost his mother, how he's not allowed to be with his father, you actually understand his pain, instead of considering him as just a mopey kid with nothing else to him. And Kumatetsu is basically the same way, not having any friends or parents, pushing everyone away, refusing to find an apprentice or clean up his act. I find putting these two together really makes this Karate Kid style story work, as both their characters feel very natural. They both fit the mold this type of story has already set up, while also being interesting enough to make this movie feel fresh. It's really emotionally investing to see these two come together and try their best to form a bond with each other, because you know how broken they both are on the inside. While both may seem different, they struggle with similar issues, so seeing them gradually get past those and form a father-son, master-apprentice relationship is unbelievably wholesome. Crazy. I never thought I would use the word wholesome to define a movie with so much fighting and screaming, but here we are. I just love watching these two attempt to understand each other better in various ways. Like Kumatetsu trying to train Ren, them going on a journey across the land to find out what true strength is, Ren trying to learn from his master by imitating him. It's all just really charming, and when the two of them eventually do gain an understanding of the other, it feels like they've really grown as people, and it's so satisfying to see given their struggle to connect earlier on. The movie's still able to pack an emotional punch without ever really trying to be emotional, which is what I love about it. And keep in mind, I was just talking about the two main characters. There's a lot more that I love about this movie. The side characters are brewing with interesting personalities and complement the main ones perfectly. I love both the pig guy and the monkey guy, who make wonderful companions for the main duo. The movie also has some breathtaking animation. It's insanely beautiful. The world of Jutangai is a visual wonder, and there's a plethora of creative and well-designed beasts and all sorts of creatures. Like Summer Wars, I wish we spent more time exploring the different areas of this world, because it feels like there's so much creativity and wonder to be seen here. But hands down, the best part of the animation are the fight scenes, which are some of the most gorgeous I've ever seen in any animated movie ever. Just gazing at how smooth and quick the character animation is, or how intense these battles are at times, is just mesmerizing and are just flat out awesome. The astonishing animation combined with the excellent score makes for oh yeah, that's another thing. The score of this movie is incredible. It's able to add so much emotion to each and every scene. If the movie wants to be exciting, the score makes it exciting. If the movie wants to be relaxed and calm, the score makes it relaxed and calm. All of this makes for an experience that sucks you into the fantastical world and makes you feel for the characters within it. It's simply incredible how Hosoda was able to do that with such a generic movie setup like this. But at this point, I guess that's just the magic of his directing. So The Boy and the Beast must be his very best. It sounds like a fantastic movie, right? Well, yeah, it's really good, but up to this point, I've only been discussing the first half of the movie. And like Wolf Children, they do shift the focus and direction of the story for the remaining half after Ren grows up, and it really hurts the film here. I'm not saying the direction they took was awful, because there's so many good ideas in here, but I vastly preferred the simplicity of the beginning, and when they abandoned that here, the plot kinda falls apart. I actually think the second half of the film starts out really strong, with Ren revisiting the human world after so many years. I love the friendship he forms with this girl named Kaide, and his growing desire to go to school and learn the things he couldn't learn in the Beast world. This is a really natural direction for his character to go in after growing up, and it could result in some really compelling drama involving the decision of which world he wants to be a part of. And the movie gains even more potential for compelling drama when Ren finally reunites with his father after so long, but the reconciliation doesn't turn out how he expected. The problem is that the movie doesn't end up doing anything with this, and it hardly impacts the emotional climax of the movie. Sure, Ren does leave the Beast world for a bit, but he eventually returns to inspire Kumatetsu during the big match the movie has been leading up to. That part is really moving, and a fantastic ending for the movie, but unfortunately this isn't the end of the movie. Yeah, there's another half hour left, and that's because they shoehorned in a twist villain. A really, really bad twist villain. Like, this might be as bad and agonizingly stupid as the twist in Lightyear. That's saying something. But yeah, after the big match is won, this guy turns out to be an evil human and stabs Kumatetsu. If you don't know who this guy is, I don't blame you, because the movie does a terrible job of setting him up. Okay, I'll try my best to explain. So the Battle of the Lordship of Juntengai was between Kumatetsu and this other guy, Iozan. And it's established early on in the film that Iozan has two sons, Jiromaru and Ichirohiku. Prior to the climax, both of his sons have been shown in this film for a whopping 2 scenes. Now, Jiromaru, the tiger guy, basically does nothing important throughout the entire movie. And as for Ichirohiku, this guy doesn't seem like he'd be important either, but apparently he's the villain now, I guess? And the reason he turned evil was because of the darkness that is only found within a human soul, and Ichirohiku has this darkness because he is not actually related to his father. Instead, Iozan found him out in the human world and decided to raise him as his own. The movie acts like this is supposed to be surprising when it really isn't at all. Firstly, just look at him compared to everyone else. He doesn't look like a beast at all, he looks like a plain old human, and how nobody else in this world realized he was a human is a beyond insane leaping of logic. I mean, take a look at this guy. You're seriously gonna tell me this human-y design doesn't stick out in the slightest? Even Hotel Transylvania made more sense in this regard. Secondly, this twist doesn't feel like it impacts the main characters in any way. Like I said, Ichirohiku hasn't gotten much screen time up to this point, and he's interacted with Ren for like 4 seconds. Villains aren't usually compelling when they have zero connection to the hero. If they had given him more screen time up to this point and set him up as a potentially important character, maybe this would have worked, but as is, it's such a hollow twist and I can't bring myself to care about it. And then when we get to the actual climax, there are some really neat visuals, but it is really all over the place. Ichirohiku turns into a giant blue whale because of the darkness, and then Ren tries to suck that darkness into himself. But back in the beast world, Kumatetsu dies and reincarnates into a sword, then the sword goes into Ren's soul and he defeats the whale and the day gets saved. Yay? I will say though, the film does have a sweet ending, with Ren permanently going back to the human world, making amends with his dad, and quite literally having the spirit of Kumatetsu live inside him. That's a really nice way to wrap things up, but it's just a shame that such a fantastic movie got dragged down by such an insanely cluttered final act. Thanks a lot for that. But you know what? I don't think it was enough to outright ruin the movie, as the good elements I mentioned earlier still remain strong, and it's able to be a decently satisfying film. And despite its faults, this is still a really great movie. It's got all the hallmarks of what makes for a great Hosoda film, while also adding in some fresher elements to make it a funny, charming, and really enjoyable experience. Definitely go give this one a watch, because it deserves more credit and attention than what it actually gets. It may stumble on its feet towards the end, but The Boy and the Beast is still a more than worthy addition to Hosoda's collection.
I'm just a kid who's 4.
Mirai is... Yeah, Mirai is certainly... I don't know. This movie is really weird, as I am super conflicted about it. I think it's a fantastic and really enjoyable film, but at the same time, I also think it's really annoying and unlikable. It's not a great movie, but I still liked it, ? Out of the 6, this movie is the hardest for me to talk about, but I'll try my best. Mirai stars Kun, a 4-year-old boy who's dealing with the arrival of his new baby sister, Mirai. And that's literally the entire movie. This is definitely the film that feels the most Ghibli-esque, in the sense that the film is very light on story and more so focused on the characters. Wolf Children was technically the same way, but even that movie sort of tried to follow a 3-act structure. Mirai has no real plot whatsoever. The film has a more episodic nature to it, where in each episode Kun hangs out with one of his relatives, with this of course all being in his imagination. I think. And to be honest, I admire Hosoda for taking this direction. After Boy and the Beast, it's nice to see him take a step back and return to doing a more laid-back slice-of-life film with no huge twists like Girl Who Leapt Through Time or Summer Wars. The entire film is just the stuff this 4-year-old gets into throughout his day-to-day life. I love slice-of-life films, and Hosoda has shown that he is great at doing stuff like this. He makes sure the movie's interesting and enjoyable despite not having a plot, and that the characters are down to earth and believable. So Hosoda was definitely onto something when he chose to go this direction for Mirai, and he succeeds in that regard. However, just because this is a good slice of life film does not mean that it is an enjoyable one. It's not unenjoyable per se, but there is one thing that really hurts the movie and makes it significantly less entertaining. That thing is the main character, Kun. I hate Kun. That may seem like hyperbole, but holy crap, this kid is the worst. If you haven't seen this film and you're watching these clips, you're probably thinking, "Aw, this kid is adorable!" And, well, yeah, you have a point. He is very adorable. But do not let that fool you, because he is literally just another version of Caillou, but at least Caillou is memeable. Kun is just insufferable to watch. Cute, but insufferable nonetheless. You know what? For fun, we're gonna go through the worst scene in the entire movie, as well as the worst scene in Hosoda's entire filmography. This'll hopefully give you a sense of just how lovable Kun is. The scene starts with the mom who does not have a name, the dad who does not have a name, and the baby. 3 actually likable characters. But then this abomination of nature shows up and starts screaming at the top of his lungs trying to get his parents' attention. It's very obnoxious and not pleasant to watch. Oh no, but this little brat just can't stand not having any attention, so then he goes on a quest for revenge. He confronts his enemy, the innocent baby, and sticks his hands in like he's going to strangle her. Then he starts smushing her face and makes her cry, but he does this all while laughing. The baby is crying and you're laughing. Rightfully, his unnamed mother comes in and tells him that he needs to be gentle and not actively try to make Mirai cry. That sentence flowed very well. What is Kun's response to this, you may ask? He reaches for his toy train and hits Mirai with it. He hits the baby with a train. Then we get to listen to these positively lovely sounds. I don't like this. This is not fun to watch, and all it's making me do is just despise Kun. Again, he hits the baby with a train. Although right afterwards, we do get the best part of the movie. So yeah, I don't particularly care for Kun. Stuff like this just makes him come across as a bratty annoyance, and I just don't want to root for him. I mean, how could you when he hit the baby with a train? It's not all bad stuff though. Throughout the film, Kun meets the spirits of various figures who help him learn lessons, and honestly, when the movie is about the magical adventures Kun goes on, or the interaction he has with these different people, it's great. I love seeing Kun meet people like his dog in human form, Mirai from the future, his mother from the past, his great-grandfather, and even himself from the future. This is a genius way for Kun to develop, and I think him meeting all these people would have led to this being an introspection of sorts for Kun. It'd be genuinely really clever, but there's a catch to all this that kinda soils the entire thing. You see, as previously mentioned, Mirai is an episodic film, and each of these episodes has a similar structure, with Kun meeting a character, helping them do something, and then learning a lesson by the end. With the moral usually being something along the lines of, grow up and don't be an annoying nuisance to everyone around you. This structure is all fine and good, but to start each episode where Kun learns not to be an annoying brat, Kun has to act like an annoying brat. And that normally wouldn't be a problem, since how else are they supposed to establish that Kun needs to learn something? But then when a given episode ends and Kun has learned not to be a brat, they have to start the next episode, and they started off with Kun being a brat. Didn't he just learn not to do that in the previous scene? Because of this episodic nature, the film just doesn't click, because we are essentially watching the same annoying character learn a slightly different variation of the same lesson 5 times over. I didn't even feel that much during the ending, where Kun has supposedly really grown. Given how this entire film has gone, I know he's just gonna go back to being a nuisance right after the film ends. And let me tell you, the scenes where Kun is supposed to be annoying in order for the movie to progress are just intolerable. In scenes like this, I just wanted the parents to punish him, which they somehow do not. And oh yeah, the parents. In my eyes, the simplest way to improve this movie would have been to give the parents more screen time to balance out the focus with Kun. I can understand Hosoda wanting to tell this story from the kid's perspective rather than from the parent, because he already spent a decent chunk of Wolf Children and Hana's struggling with parenthood. But you see, the kids in that movie also had development, and the balancing of both sides is what made the characters all compelling and interesting. Mirai is trying to do this, kinda. Like, we still get a handful of scenes that focus on the parents and their struggles through life and raising their children. I really like those parts, and both of the parents are interesting and likable characters, especially the dad. I think if we had more of these scenes to see how everyone else is reacting to Kun's brattiness instead of practically everything being about him, the movie could have worked really well. But unfortunately, the parent-centered scenes are few and far between and rarely intertwine with the Kun stuff. It's baffling that we even focus on them at all if we can't focus on them very much, and since we get more scenes of him in place, the lack of the parents does harm the film. I know I sound really negative and you probably think I hate this movie, but not really. I still kinda liked watching it. Once you get past those tantrum scenes and get to Kun's adventures with his relatives, it's really charming and funny stuff. Not only is it interesting for Kun to meet these people, but he works really well off of all of them, and their interactions and situations they get into are really fun. I really like when Kun has to distract his dad so future Mirai can sneak into the house and put these special dolls away. It's entertaining while also being a great way for Kun to develop as a character, even if the next episode will kinda ruin that. The same could be said about the other stuff Kun gets into. I liked watching all these little vignettes. On top of that, the beautiful animation and score are still here, and they're obviously great. I love how Hosoda went for a more relaxed and calm feel for the visuals, from the color palette to the character design. And the sets and backgrounds of the main house are excellent, and you really get immersed throughout the film. Mirai is all around a natural feeling film, which is its greatest strength, but for me, that may also be the biggest problem. Yes, Mirai has incredibly human characters, and yes, they develop in a human way. Yes, Kun is a very human character. I certainly wouldn't argue that he's a brick rather than a person like I did with Earwig. 4-year-olds are bratty, and they definitely get jealous if their siblings are stealing attention from them. Heck, Hosoda based Kun on his own son, who also did not adapt well to being a big brother. That's the thing though, I don't like bratty 4-year-olds in real life either. No offense to any toddlers watching this video. So while Kun is just as human as the characters from the previous movies, I just don't personally like him, nor is Mirai my personal favorite of Hosoda's. It's certainly not bad by any stretch of the imagination. There are so many good ideas, fun moments, and nice laid-back storytelling, but its characters hold me back from really loving it personally. But that's just me, and I can definitely see other people clicking with this film in ways I couldn't. I'd say it's a great film for young kids, as it can teach them morals without talking down to them, while also being a great film for parents to watch and relate to. So yeah, Mirai may not be all that great in my eyes, but Hosoda went in a different direction with this one, and I'd say he did a respectable job. And hey, he actually got an Oscar nomination for this one, his first one ever. Now marketers can brag about this in the trailers for all of his films that followed this one. And speaking of which, there are good movies, there are great movies, and then there are movies like Belle. Films that are so awe-inspiringly amazing that words could never do them justice. Yep, this is the one. This is the one that beat Wolf Children. This is the best of the best. All 5 of Hosoda's previous films, all of the masterful storytelling, all of the increasingly complex characters, all of the human emotions, they were all building up to Belle. I don't even know where to start with this one, because practically every single aspect blows my mind in some capacity. Belle is about Suzu, a socially awkward high school girl who's gone into a state of emotional isolation following the loss of her mother. That is until she starts singing inside the virtual world called You, and becomes famous overnight under the stage name Belle. While in this world, she meets and forms a friendship with a mysterious beast, and desires to help him before the rest of the internet can take him down. So right away you're probably noticing some similarities to a specific Disney movie, with that obviously being Beauty and the Beast. If you've been paying close attention throughout the video, you may have assumed that this film is one of Hosoda's greatest inspirations. I mean, this is the second movie with a reference to it in the title. And that assumption would actually be correct. Hosoda did base this movie on the one from Disney, and not just on the original fairy tale. Belle does admittedly follow some very similar beats to that movie, but with the way the presentation of the movie is, I just don't even care. A movie having a similar story to another one isn't inherently a bad thing, just as long as the movie doesn't make you wish you were watching something else. Wish Dragon sucks, but not because it uses the same story that Aladdin did, but because it's just not an enjoyable movie, and literally everything it did was done better in Aladdin. The same thing applies to pretty much every single Disney remake. But even with how I feel about the original Beauty and the Beast, I gotta say, Belle uses this story in such a genius way that lives up to the 1991 movie in terms of thematic brilliance. Just in the premise alone, this movie does a ton to make it feel like a new take on the story. I'm sure when you think of Beauty and the Beast, the last thing you think of is the internet, which is where this movie takes place. This combination of a classic story and a very modern backdrop wouldn't sound like it would work, but it does. Belle uses the internet setting to its full storytelling potential in an even more nuanced way than Summer Wars did. It's super interesting to see all these different avatars and how this world functions. But on top of that, it ties in really well to the characters. In the opening scene, it's established that when a person creates an avatar, you draws out the person's hidden strengths, and they're able to show them within the virtual world. This is the perfect setup considering what kind of character Zuzu is. After losing her mother, she became shy and quiet. She knows that she has talent within her, but she has so much trouble expressing it. This is why it's rewarding to see her go into the world of you, start singing again, and become happier as a result. Maybe I'm just biased because I'm also an awkward teenager who expresses themselves via the internet, but I think Suzu is the most human character Hosoda has ever written. The movie does a fantastic job establishing her character in just the first few minutes. Her desire to make music, her connection to her mother, her struggle to express herself given the world around her. She feels so down to earth, and the same applies to every other character in the movie. Belle does the same thing that The Girl Who Leapt Through Time in Summer Wars did, where the film starts out with a typical high school story before going into the more outer worldly stuff. And I gotta say, it's so bizarre watching Belle and seeing how much Hosoda has mastered characterization in the 15 years since its first movie, where he was already good at it. None of these guys feel like archetypes, even though they technically all are. We have the popular girl, the hot guy the main girl has a crush on, the weird guy, the nerdy girl. We've checked a lot of boxes for a typical high school story. But even then, I don't notice that too much while watching because the interactions between all the characters make them feel like real people. Hiro is the smart computer girl, sure, but she's also shown to have another side to her that cares about Suzu's insecurities and wants to help her out, like any good friend would. Ruka is the popular girl, but she's not mean or bratty like other characters in that category. She's shown to be a caring and human person with her own struggles and problems. This movie still doesn't quite top Wolf Children in terms of believable characters, but regardless, it's incredible how Hosoda was able to take generic character types like these and make them immensely likable and interesting. You feel the connections they all have with each other due to how well written they are, making the conflicts and themes this movie has far more compelling. Going back to the Beauty and the Beast stuff, this movie incorporates the themes of the story expertly, and it even fleshes some of them out better than the other movie. I somehow forgot to mention this in my video from last year, but a key theme of the Beauty and the Beast story is the act of sacrifice. Belle gives up her life in order for her father to be set free, the Beast hurts himself while saving Belle from the wolves, the Beast gives up his desire to become human again and he lets Belle leave the castle. It makes sense for the movie to have all this, because sacrifice is a part of love and being a kind person. However, Belle poses an interesting question on that concept. Why? Why would you sacrifice things like your own life for another person? How do your sacrifices affect the people around you? At the start of the film, we get a flashback showing how Suzu's mother died. She went out into a raging river to save a child during a rainstorm, and this action leaves a gigantic impact on Suzu. Not just because her mother is gone, but also because of the reason her mother even left. She died while saving a random child and left her own daughter behind. Given how important Suzu's mother was to her, she's confused at why she would even do this, even if she was a kind person. But Suzu's perception on this changes later when we get to the movie's version of the Beast saving Belle from the wolves. Suzu sees that despite his threatening presence, he did this out of the kindness of his heart. This is built on later in the movie when Suzu finds out the Beast's true identity and finds out the reason he's so angry and bitter at the world is because his own father abuses him and his brother, whom he protects with all his strength. Suzu needs to come into contact with him in order to help him, and to show that Suzu cares about the Beast, she sings for him in front of the entire world of you. But she doesn't sing as Belle, she erases that identity and unveils her true self, singing as Suzu in order to show that she is a real person with a real heart and that she wants to help. And to her surprise, it works. And then finally, we have the culmination of her character arc, where Suzu travels across Japan to find the Beast's location and save him from the abusive father. Even when the father comes out, Suzu holds the two brothers tight, protecting them and not letting them get hurt by the father. And then, when the father reaches his most threatening, Suzu proudly stands up with the boys behind her, showing that she's not giving them up, no matter what it takes. And this action renders the father powerless, and he drops to the ground and scurries away. It's a gorgeous scene with an excellent payoff for the question Suzu was asking at the beginning. Is sacrifice like this even worth it? And the answer is yes. Suzu did all of this out of the pure kindness and love of her heart, and she was able to save 2 brothers in the process, making the world a better place. This is another reason why I think it was a great idea to set this film on the internet, because yeah, it's far from a perfect shiny rainbow place that it may look like on the surface. But Suzu, despite being the biggest virtual star ever, stayed a kind and caring person and was able to bring happiness to those around her. It's such a brilliant theme that I think could resonate with anyone, especially in our modern day and age. But the praises for Belle don't even stop there. You've probably noticed, but this movie is beyond gorgeous looking. The world of You has so much visual creativity and liveliness to it, the characters look amazing, and the CGI with these anime designs doesn't look jarring or awkward at all. It's legitimately some of the smartest blending of 2D and 3D animation I've ever seen, and it elevates some truly magical sequences. And speaking of which, do you want to know the best element of Belle? The thing that makes this movie not only an amazing film, but a stunningly beautiful masterpiece? It's the soundtrack. Oh wow, the soundtrack is incredible. I'm not just talking about the great score, but also the original songs this movie has, which are well written and incredibly impactful. You is the perfect opener for the movie, showing how vibrant and huge the world of You is before cutting to the drabness of Suzu's average life. Gales of Song is absolutely beautiful. I love how it starts out slow, before picking up in the second half as Suzu gains more courage in her singing, and it pays off to see her find happiness again by the end of the song. Lend Me Your Voice is stunning. Lyrically, it's just genius, but musically, it's phenomenal. The gorgeous melody combined with the gorgeous visuals make the dance scene between Belle and the Beast a wonder to behold. They captured the magic this scene is supposed to have perfectly, and it's easily one of the best parts of the entire film. And then there's A Million Miles Away, a song that is so magnificent that it's hard to find the right words for. It's already a great sounding song on its own, but in the context of the movie, it's astonishing how amazing it is. This is what Suzu sings in order to draw the Beast out, and seeing her pausing halfway through, coming to the realization of why her mother went to save that child, the realization of what true love and kindness is, and then everyone joining in to sing along with her, bringing the lights of their hearts into the world, just holy cow. Saying this scene is beautiful is a gross understatement, because it is legitimately one of the best movie scenes I've ever witnessed. I remember on my first viewing of this film, my jaw didn't just drop during this part, it broke through my floor and went downstairs. How do you even manage to create a scene this stunning? How do you even manage to make a movie this good? I've been talking about this movie for a while, so I should probably wrap it up, although I will probably find myself making a separate video on it in the future. Just know that Belle is one of the greatest animated films of all time, one of the most beautiful, one of the most moving, one of the smartest. This movie just has it all. If the Academy not giving this film even a mere nod proves they don't care about animation, I don't know what will. But either way, Belle is the crowning jewel of Hosoda's filmography, and I say that with absolutely no hesitation. Great job, Hosoda, because with Belle, you really outdid yourself. Well, it's been a long journey, but we've finally made it. That was every Mamoru Hosoda movie, minus One Piece, reviewed. And after taking a closer look at all of these, I think this guy is one of the best directors in the current anime industry. He's able to pull off movies with various tones and settings, while also bringing us some fantastic characters. Considering how popular he's gotten over the years, he may as well be the next Miyazaki, the big anime filmmaker who inspires so many through his passionate works of art. I didn't really see the point in doing this video in a ranking style, since I don't think any of the movies are outright bad. But in case you want to know the order, Mirai would be the weakest, followed by The Girl Who Leapt for Time, followed by The Boy and the Beast, followed by Summer Wars. The runner-up would be Wolf Children, and at the top of the list is Belle, to the surprise of absolutely no one. So yeah, there's the ranking, but it may not stay that way forever. Who knows what Hosoda is currently working on? Maybe something that's even better than Belle. That may sound crazy given what I just said about the movie, but with the creativity, wonder, and emotions behind his previous 6 films, Hosoda is the kind of director who can do anything, and I can't wait to see where he goes next.